Welcome to Days at Dogwood Canyon, a nature podcast brought to you by Dogwood Canyon Audubon Center in Cedar Hill, Texas. This is a podcast that will take you into our 200-acre wildlife preserve in the heart of the DFW Metroplex. Take a quick weekly break with us and get outside with the fresh air, the trees, and of course, the birds. My name is Kirsten, and I'm Center Coordinator Community Programs here at Dogwood Canyon Audubon Center. Welcome, listeners, to our Days at Dogwood Canyon podcast. This is a podcast about nature, birds, plants, and us. We will talk about how we all rely on each other to live our best lives. This episode of Native Plants of Dogwood Canyon will begin a slightly different series that will run throughout the coming months, and that is an Invasive Species Series. We have wonderful native plants here that grow throughout our preserve, but like most of North America, we have a non-native invasive species that have found their way into the preserve as well. We try and remove them when we can, and we rely heavily on our volunteers to do this, but it's a constant battle. Since this is the introductory episode of this series, let's start off with a few definitions. First, a non-native species is a plant that originated outside the habitat where it currently is found. So, for example, we are talking about Chinese Privet today. This plant originated in China, but is now found here in Texas. An invasive species is a species that can overwhelm a habitat without a set of checks and balances in place to keep it under control. These plants will crowd out other species because they use up all the resources for themselves. And there is often nothing in the habitat that helps keep this particular plant under control. Now, an invasive plant can be both non-native and native. If a habitat becomes unbalanced due to human alteration or severe weather changes or other things, some plants will take advantage of that and overrun the area. In Texas, for example, different species of cedars that are native can become invasive if the habitat becomes unbalanced. Okay, let's look at the focus of today's episode, Chinese Privet. Its scientific name is Ligustrum sinensis and is also known as the small leaf privet and Chinese ligustrum. It is native to Asia and was introduced in the United States in the 1800s. It was brought here and planted as an ornamental because people liked how it was always green and it could grow large enough to produce living fences. It is heavily found in the southern and eastern portions of the United States, including Texas. But don't worry, those of you in the north, it's well on its way to cover the entire North American continent. Chinese privet is an evergreen shrub with spreading branches. Leaves are opposite each other down the length of the branch with short petioles. Blades can be up to 2 inches long and are ovate or elliptic. They are usually rounded at the tip, but sometimes will have a small notch. They do taper to the base of the leaf and they have smooth margins. When it flowers in the spring, the fragrance from the tiny white flowers is light and pleasant. Another reason it was used as an ornamental. The flowers are about 3/8 of an inch wide and are seen in narrow clusters up to 4 inches in length. You will see flowers from March to May. They fruit in the fall and the berries remain on the plant through the winter. Berries can be black to bright red. Another reason they were used as an ornamental because the berries make them look very pretty in the winter. Quoting from the USDA's Southern Research Station Plant Spotlight, quote, Chinese privet is one of the worst invasive plants in the South. It dominates the shrub layer and often becomes the only shrub underneath trees, end quote. This is bad, so bad. We rely on that healthy balance of different species of plants helping each other out within a habitat so it can support everything else. Our insects, our birds, our wildlife. That's super important, the diversity. Once you have it, it is difficult to remove because it colonizes by root sprouts and is spread widely by animal seed dispersal. One mature Chinese privet can produce thousands of seeds. Now, before you say, oh, that's a good thing, the Chinese privet provides berries for our wildlife, the berries aren't really eaten by very many species at all. So something like an American beautyberry, that produces berries that many, many more species eat. So how do you keep from getting this plant in your yard? First, do not plant it intentionally. If someone tries to sell you on what a great plant it is for creating living privacy fences, do not listen. There are great native plants that do the same thing and are beneficial to the habitats. For example, Texas mountain laurel, possum haw, Texas green sage, and southern wax myrtle. And these are just a few native alternatives to Chinese privet. And these can all make really beautiful hedges or a wall if you let them grow tall enough, and they're going to support all the wildlife that is native to your area. So you can also cut Chinese privet, mulch it, and bulldoze it, but only do this when the fruits are not present. If you do this when the berries are on the plants, you're just spreading it further. You can use targeted herbicides such as Remedy to poison adult bushes and ones that you see starting to grow. And this is the recommended way to get rid of privet because it will take care of it all the way down to the roots. Now, if you haven't noticed your privet or you didn't know it was privet and you want to get rid of it, this Chinese privet, then you can also use tree girdling if it has gotten to the size of a tree, and that will help kill it off. Then you can move it out and make sure you get all those roots out as well. Now, during the rainy season, you can pull them by hand, but you have to make sure you get all the roots out, remember, or your hard work is for naught. I will post a link in the show notes to help you identify this plant and then find ways to treat it that will work for you. The next step to take is to tell all of your friends about this highly invasive plant. Talk to everyone, friends, family, people you're standing in line with the grocery store. Talk about it in your HOA meetings. Discuss it with your local gardening clubs. Report it to nursery owners when you see them supplying Chinese privet as something that people should be buying. If we let this plant grow unencumbered, we will lose all of our native plants that support our native wildlife and make our Texas landscapes special. And once that is gone, it is a very long road to rebuild. Where can you find Chinese privet at Dogwood Canyon Audubon Center? I wish I could say nowhere, but reluctantly we do have it. We have a very healthy bunch of it growing on our canyon floor trail. And next time you're out here, please ask us to show it to you. We'll be happy to show it to you. And we also invite you to become a habitat volunteer at our preserve so you can help us keep our community, keep your community Chinese privet free.